Hello and welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Whiteside, licensed clinical social worker with Cherub Home Care. Thank you so much for joining us. However you may be joining us, we appreciate it very, very much. It's always nice to bring to you updates about what's happening in our community and those people that we have who are helping others with some new positions, new programs. Always excited and glad to welcome in our Lafourche Parish District Attorney, Christine Russell. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us. We
All right.
appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Sitting next to her, Jason Chatinier, Chief of Trials. Jason, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Sitting next to him, very excited, Mr. Sean George, Chief of Violent Crimes. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us, Mr. Keith.
All right. Very good. So, Christine, nice. You've got some 3 new appointments here, 2 of which are here.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. As we start going forward, and you have to adapt, of course, to what's going on in your communities. I thought it was the right time that we have some new appointments. Elisa Ogeron is the first assistant. She's been with us since 2003.
Right.
Has really done a fantastic job. And so, of course, it was natural for me to move her up to first assistant.
Oh, wow.
Jason, as our chief of trials, has such a lot of experience in the courtroom, and so that was an appointment that I thought would be best. And then, of course, in the culture that we're living in, and we're seeing maybe an increase in violent crimes, to make sure that our office was given the best service to our community, that we were following these cases. I moved Sean up to chief of violent crime so he can work with law enforcement to make sure that we put the bad guys away.
I like it. I like it. Jason, let's start with you, Chief of Trials, but tell us a little bit about your journey to this point in your life and how you've enjoyed that.
Well, I'm originally from Shreveport, Louisiana, born and
Right.
raised, graduated from H.L. Bourgeois, went to Nichols for undergrad, and then attended Southern University Law Center. Finished there in 2005, passed the bar exam, and if you remember, 2005 was the Katrina
I do
year.
remember very well.
So it was one of those situations where I was living in Baton Rouge and began my career there and enjoyed 10 years of practice there in Baton Rouge, mainly as an IDB attorney with the Public Defender's Office there in
Okay.
Baton Rouge. And then my wife and I, who's also Melanie Chatinier, is an attorney
Right.
as well. And we started having kids and decided, let's go somewhere else. Let's try out a different place. And coming back home was one of the things we thought about and ultimately did. So I was fortunate enough, and when I returned home, Christine and Cam Wilborn, her predecessor, approached me, basically made an offer I couldn't refuse. And that began this journey that I'm on now. I've been with the office going on 8 years. And my focus has been really trying cases, being in the courtroom, trying the difficult cases, the most important cases when it comes to juvenile victims, victims of violent crimes, things that touch everyday people. So that's really been my journey to this point. I look forward to continuing that journey and continuing to be in the courtroom and trying the difficult cases.
Wow. Well, we're glad to do it. And congratulations on Chief of Trials. Sean, let's start with you and how you got to where we are today.
So, much like Jason, went to Nichols State out of high school, was born and raised in La Rose. In my 41 years, I moved a total of 8 miles up the Bayou. So, living in Lockport now, went to
Right.
Nichols, had majors in criminal justice and political science, went to Loyola Law School, graduated from there. And literally every day that I could, I would send Cam and Christine a letter begging them to hire me. And eventually they did.
Finally, they heard.
They did. Eventually they did, and it's been one of the biggest blessings that I've had.
Yeah.
Much like Jason, I do a lot of the trial work. He and I together.
Right.
And like Christine said, with the uptick in violence, pretty much nationwide.
Right.
That's been the focus of my prosecution, trial work, whether it be murders, attempted murders, manslaughters, different things like that.
Well, listen, I got to tell you both, it's really nice to be able to see people. We talk about people coming home all the time. We talk about those of us that started here, grew up here, went to Nichols, and or went off to school, however we needed to, and being able to come back. There's got to be a feeling of helping make sure that you're working in, for, and with the people in your community that you need to help keep safe. Let's talk about maybe becoming this chief of violent crimes. And just, did you ever think you would get to this point?
So that
Maybe you did, since you sent that many emails to Cam and
I
Christine.
did a lot of
Yeah,
letters.
okay.
That was always my goal.
Okay.
Kind of little backstory. I was a flight paramedic with Acadian before I did this.
Wow.
And you have that exposure to victims and getting to see the real life aspect of it.
Right.
And that was one of the big reasons I went to law school, was to try and make a change. And that has always been a goal of mine. It was always been a fascination of mine, the criminology aspect of it. So I didn't know that Christine would have allowed such a thing, but I'm very blessed and very fortunate to be in that position, because it is the hot topic everywhere you look. Like just yesterday, the mass shooting in Shreveport, it's
Right.
close to home. It happens
Right.
in every parish across the nation. So yeah, I'm glad we're there, and we're going to do some great things with it.
Right. I appreciate that. As we close out last minute or so, Jason, for you, did you ever see yourself kind of being in this role?
No, I didn't. But it's one of those things where I think it finds you. You didn't necessarily find it. And the more I practiced, the more I was in front of a jury or juries and trying cases, the more I felt like I could do this. I could see myself doing this. And kind of speak to returning home, that was never the game plan.
Right.
But I'll say this, having returned home and being in a courtroom with familiar faces, people in the community that you represent and you work to protect, and they hold you accountable. And I appreciate that and respect that, because whether I'm at Rouse or shopping, I'm in the community, time and time again, people come to me and say, hey, listen, I recognize you. Where's that from? Well, you had jury duty, didn't you, last month? Absolutely.
And you get to respond to that.
And you do, and you get to see that they remember you. They see what the work that you're doing, and more importantly, hey, good job getting that bad guy off the streets.
And speaking about the good work that you're doing, I want to talk about that through the DA's office when we come back. Y'all stick around. All right, you stick around as well. We'll be right back talking a little bit more with the Lafourche Parish District Attorney's Office and all the good things happening there. We'll be right back here on Bayou Time.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health Systems, modern technology and timeless caring. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bourke, know your rights.
Hello and welcome back to this edition of Bayou Time. Again, your host, Keith Whiteside. I appreciate you joining us, however you may be joining us. Thank you. I'm very glad to have with us different members of the Lafourche Parish District Attorney's Office and the District Attorney, Christine Russell. Tell us a little bit about how things are going in the DA's office. These new appointments, I know, is an exciting time. An exciting time because we know the need is there.
It is, and I think we're ever evolving. I think you kind of have to. I think, since, of course, COVID and Ida, and we've talked about that, we've had to really prioritize our cases and moving forward. Victims have been waiting a long time, and many are still waiting. I think with these new appointments and the staff that we have, we really are trying our cases. We're moving them. We're working with our victims, and I'm very proud that we're doing that. We still have a lot more work to do. And I don't know if we'll ever feel as though we're on top of it. I think it's always going to be, trying really, really hard to make sure that when we get the cases, maybe within a year or two, we can try them. And we're going to always shoot for that as our goal. But we're working extremely hard. And I think we're going to do that for another year or two where we feel like we're back to where we were before COVID and Ida.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those things where people talk about how sociologically the impact of COVID, the impact of Ida, but as it slowed down the legal process, y'all have been working diligently to hasten that.
Yeah, and I think, of course, we're seeing the effects of all of it, the mental health effects. I think we see that in the cases that we're having. I think we see that across the board. But certainly when you have more cases coming in, a lot really having this root of mental health issues. And then here the system has sort of slowed down a little bit. And we're trying to get to our older cases and make sure that we're respecting victims and that they didn't ask to be put in these positions. It's difficult. However, all that being said, they're doing great work in our office. I have some committed staff members and assistants who are trying their best to change the community they live in. I mean, I am so lucky every day to work with them.
Now, you used a word I'm going to disagree with. So do you mind if I disagree with you?
Of course,
You said
everybody-
they're trying to make a difference. They're not. They're
good.
making a difference.
They are. They are.
Every day. And some tirelessly. And you've talked about this in the past about the staff that you have and how dedicated they are to the mission of making sure that you're serving those people in the first parish.
Yeah, and thank you for changing that.
Okay.
You're right. They are. You know, when you look at prosecutors and law enforcement and even our staff in general, sometimes our country has kind of sometimes made us sort of the enemy. And I look at the group of people that I get to work with, and I can tell you, and I can tell the community, these people are trying to truly serve justice and make the community a better place for themselves and for their children, their grandkids. And the way that you do that is you try to make it safer, you worry about public safety, and at the same time you have compassion. And I think I found a group of individuals who have that balance. And so they are doing just that. They're making a difference in the office that they work in, and they're making a difference with the victims' families that they're working with, and they're making a difference in the community. And I'm hoping we're raising the bar, and they're raising a bar that's going to stay high for years and years to come.
And identifying those new programs that need to be addressed. We know that we need all this trial work. We know that Jason has spent time in trials, but to be the chief of trials now means that he's overseeing all of those that go to trial and being able to address that and address those issues, right?
Absolutely. And it's to make sure that we're prioritizing what needs to go, that they're not getting lost in the shuffle with so many cases. Jason can stay on top of all the divisions. Again, we have great prosecutors, so I think his job won't be as difficult as maybe at some other places. And then Sean, when it comes to the violent cases, our murders and things like that, Sean can be that second hand in there to make sure that if they need his expertise, he can be there. And that, again, those victims are getting the services that they need. We always have to remember the victims have got to be in front of this. And we have to make sure at the end of the day, they feel as though justice has been served, not only the community that we live in as well.
And it's got to be so validating to find a way that we are holding people accountable. And the only way to do that is to have some dedicated staff that know what they're doing about addressing that. And holding people accountable is difficult. And we have a process, and that process takes a little while. So we ask people to be patient.
We do. And I think you need a group of people who understand that some people need a second chance, and they need to make sure that whatever their consequences are, it fits the crime. And if we can help them turn their life around, that's our obligation. And some people, they don't get that because they're dangerous and they need to go away. And that is their consequence. And that's how we hold them accountable so that they do not hurt anyone else in their community. And I think we have a group of people who understand the balance between compassion and when there is no longer compassion, and it's time for us to try the case and make sure they hurt no one else again.
And part of that compassion is having the programs and partnering with the people that are running those programs to give them that option.
Absolutely.
And that second chance, right?
Yeah, and I think partnership with not only community organizations, with our law enforcement, and then the programs within our own office, I think are very, very important. I will always say outreach is very important. If we're ever going to change the system in our communities, we have to get to our children. We have to continue these programs. We have to serve our children and our communities. And again, I think if we take a step back and we focus a lot on those children and do the programs that we're doing and try to educate and try to give them other outlets than the streets and crime, then maybe we'll see a change in those numbers and violent crimes, and maybe we'll be bored and we won't need to come on here and give you, an update because, maybe we'll make a difference.
I would love for y'all not to come on to do that.
We would love to be bored.
Right, exactly. That would be very, very nice. But the fact is that we're in the process of making change.
Yes.
Social workers have all been seen as change agents, but that's exactly what each of you are doing through the DA's office in Lafourche Parish, making a difference, finding a way to make our community safer, make our community better, and having that move to fruition in our future.
Yes. And you need people who have passion to do it. And we in Lafourche have a group of individuals who are passionate.
I love it. I love your passion. Thanks for being on as always.
Thanks for having
Congratulations, gentlemen, on your new positions. Thank you as always for what you do.
Thanks for having us.
All right, guys, that will do it for this particular segment of Bayou Time. Don't go anywhere. A whole lot more local programming right here on HTV.
All right, Dad.